Hello, America. This is Eddie Marcus again, spokesman and advocate of basic human rights for all people. Today, I'd like to speak to you on the subject matter America, a house divided. When we think of a house divided, we refer to a statement most of us have heard that said, when a house is divided, it cannot stand. If we think of a husband and a wife, and they are on two different paths, they have two different concepts of life and the way that life is to be pursued, and it is definitely contradictory or contrary to one another. Eventually, there will be a divorce because that marriage cannot stand with two individuals going two different ways. When we think about a house, a family, a mother and a father and the children, mother and the father on the same path, but for some strange reason the children are on a different path, and it causes all kinds of problems. Eventually those kids will leave, or there's going to be so much turmoil in that house that someone is going to end up getting hurt. For that family cannot stand. There are notes, ladies and gentlemen. When I think about these kinds of things, I think about men. Men who are at odds with one another because of the shade of their skin. I think about this wholeheartedly when I think about the racism, when I think about the bigotry, when I think about all of the problems that have derived because people had different shades of skin. And it's not restricted to that. Even those who are the same shade of skin but have different color eyes. So we still have complications. I want you to know, ladies and gentlemen, that all of these kinds of things are problems. We think about economics. We think about those who have and those who do not have. Look at the problems that exist there. And what brought that on? A house divided cannot stand. A nation divided cannot stand. We think about the relationship with genders. Right now we have always said that men wanted to run the show. And these days and times the women are so disgusted and so fed up, it seems as if the only thing that satisfies them is if they begin to run the show. And here we have another divide between men and women. We have divides between geographics. Some people in the south, some people in the north, people in the west and people in the east, having all kinds of problems because of where they come from, the lifestyle that they've been exposed to, what they have been privy to, and how it causes a kind of confusion. We think about education, those who say they have the best education and those who have little education. These things divide people. It divides a house, and it makes that house unable to stand. It divides a nation and makes that nation unable to stand. We think about religion. Oh my God. Religion, Catholicism, Protestantism can't stand because of the different beliefs that they all have pertaining to a one God. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there are also biases in businesses. If you're on the right, your business will be supported if those who are in power are of the right. And if you're on the left, the same thing. But if you are on the right, your left business can almost forget it. If you are on the left, your right business can almost forget it. This is the kinds of problems that we have in our country today. Now I say to you, ladies and gentlemen, and I say this sincerely, sometimes somebody have got to stand before the people and speak the truth. America is a nation that is divided. It has been divided for quite some time, but over time it has gotten more and more divided till stilts won't hold them up. Pretension will not hold them up, and it is a nation destined to fall unless something happens quite well. I want to begin by telling you this. Men are not lovers. Men are selfish creatures. From the moment they recognized they had choice, they became selfish because the only choice that mattered was their choice, and the choice of another did not matter. And everybody's choice is important to them, and it is keeping everybody at odds with one another. And these choices, my friends, are keeping the people, keeping humanity divided, and a humanity divided cannot stand. We speak of religion. Religion is of man, and it is no good. The church is of man, and it is no God. It cannot stand, and it is no good. Now, you've heard it said in the Bible that Jesus said, "This is my church, my church, my church." And so many of you think that the church is of God. But the understanding that comes from 40 years of living in the wilderness dictates and gives me the authority to say to you that the church that the Bible speaks of is not the church that is represented here on earth. Not too long ago, a young man, or should I say an older man, by the name of Billy Graham died. And he was honored by the nation as being the nation's premier representative of God. And you look back at the record and say, what did he do for God? You say he spoke to more people across the nation, he spoke to more people across the world than perhaps any figure representative of the church, representative of religion in America, and you honored him as being such. But what did he do for God? Problem becomes, what does God want of us, the people? What does God want of us, the people? 40 years of living in the wilderness gives me the authority to tell you that America does not know what God wants. America knows what America wants, and America tries to do what it can to get what it wants, and it has nothing to do with God except where they can milk God, pimp God, and get some money out of God. You see, the truth of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, that I don't know if all of humankind are unaware of God, but America is definitely unaware of God. In fact, America created its own God. Let me say that again. America created its own God. M-O-N-E-Y. M-O-N-E-Y. Money. That's what basically all people in America think is God. It doesn't matter whether you're Catholic, Protestant, it doesn't matter whether you're out of the church or in the church. All you want is money. Why? Because money, you think, gives you the ability to do anything in America you want to do. And so, since everybody can't have money, we have, again, a nation divided. And we understand that a house divided against itself will never, ever stand. And so I choose this moment to speak to you today about a nation divided. Cannot stand. But that's not the crux of my presentation to you today. You know that America cannot stand divided. You know that your house cannot stand divided. But what my real purpose here today is to show you and tell you how America can stand. And I begin by telling you this. God is real. And all existence is a representation of God. Even the hell that you find yourselves in is a representation of God, because in the creative process, God has given you authority over your life by your choices, the choices that you make. When you make bad choices, you get bad results. That's divine. When there's a lack of justice, you find all kinds of problems. Why? Because that's divine. If you want justice, there must be principles that are put in place that would create justice. And where there is no justice, there will never be peace. Why? Because that is justice. Now, let me tell you something else about God. God is a dictator. Yes, my friends, God is a dictator. But God gives you choice. In order to receive peace, prosperity, and happiness in your life, God dictates that you must love others as you love yourselves. And if you don't love others as you love yourself, you will never enjoy and experience peace and prosperity in the form that it is to be. Sure, there are men on earth who want to be dictators, but they don't give you the liberty that God gives you. They punish you. They kill you. The North Korean, I believe, it's true, I don't know if it is, but he kills his own relatives when they get in the way. In the Philippines, there's a type of dictatorship there that when the people get out of line with what the president wants, that dictator wants, he has them killed. I understand that the same thing happens in Russia and perhaps everywhere where there is a dictator. Even here in America, America has now a dictator on the throne. And he has begun to exercise his dictatorial powers. And all of the people in America who thought they were so fine, who thought they were above all of these kinds of things, find themselves in that same crevice, falling and giving allegiance to the dictator. A dictator that will kill you in a moment. A dictator who will stand before you and lie, and you accept the lies as a condition for the peace of keeping this dictator off you. But those of you who do not think God is a dictator, why do you think Lucifer was kicked out of heaven? He produced odds with the dictatorship of God. And this is the same thing that's happening in the world today. The very same thing that is happening in the world today. And because I have walked 40 years in this hellhole, what you call a wilderness, I can stand before you and tell you these things. By walking here in this hellhole, I have seen what those who call themselves representatives of God tell you. And it has allowed, they have allowed you to perpetuate the sins and evilness by joining in. There was one who called himself a dictator who began to change things around when they saw that those who were true believers in God began to resist the ways of the world. Constantine, wanting to bring the powers together, claimed to be born again. A liar, just like the liar we have in the White House today. Began to say, we will stop persecuting you. Come together and we will be as one. And they did, because people don't really want to die, so they came together. And they forgot the God that says, do unto others, and began interested in the money. As you can see, preachers all over the country today, all they want is money, to jets, to all of the luxury that people who have no interest in God whatsoever desire. This is the same thing they want. Even in other church organizations, they want you to give your tithes and offerings. They want you to commit such an amount of money that they can match so the church can grow. 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 Grow to what? What have you done for God? And I say to all of you, what have you done for God? The last presidential election, I gotta say this again, you had two representatives and the whole nation stood before themselves and called one or the other evil. And when you have that going on, you had two evil representations standing there before you saying, I want to be your lesser of the evils. And those people of the world who recognized that things weren't like they wanted them to be decided, that the Republicans and the Democrats had not served their cause. And while one of those representatives of evil was a part of the system, there was one that wasn't. When he came to make his speeches to the people, he drove up in his big plane with his name on it. He had a television show with his name on it. He had beautiful women that he would take all across the country and put on in pageants with his name on it. He said he had billions, though you couldn't confirm it because he didn't give his taxes. And you just went crazy. Why? Because he had what you thought was enough God to not turn to those other candidates. Those other candidates didn't have the billions. Those other candidates did not have the planes. They did not have the TV shows. They did not have the recognition that this one did. This lesser of two evils did. And so you put them aside and went for the lesser of the two evils. And that evil you put on the throne that had no challenge except hell itself. And now, that representative is changing America to hell. Everything is at odds. Why? Because here is a dictator, my friends, that wants to be God. And America is bending its back to serve it. But I challenge you. I say to you that white people have taught you about God. Everybody in this nation, I don't care where you come from, there's a recognition of a God that is preeminent in this country. You can call it Catholicism or Protestant, but it is a religion that this nation walks on, that this nation bends its back to. And what is it? White supremacy and dictatorship. And anybody, black, any other color that talks about religion speaks on the same term that the white supremacist has said, you must. And so, in reality, you don't know anything about the true God. I say this to you, and I challenge any American, black, white, any other people that live here calling themselves an American. I challenge every last one of you. I challenge you on your understanding of God. I challenge you on your understanding of God. Tell me right now, who and wherever you are, what white person do you know that is representative of peace and prosperity and happiness for every American? Can you think of one? No, you cannot. Can you think of one black man here in America that stands for peace and prosperity and happiness for everybody in America? No, not even one. I stand before you with 40 years in the wilderness and tell you I challenge anybody. You don't even want a person like that. You take a little kid who goes down in a tunnel and gets buried, and for some strange reason somebody brings him back to life or saves him, and he's on national television. You take a lady who calls herself a sister who backs a basketball team, and all of a sudden she's all over the national news. People are selling bobby heads and socks with a picture on it because she's a sister, saying she talked to God. And a basketball team seems to be going someplace. She's all over the national news. But you let someone stand before you and talk about peace and prosperity and happiness for everyone. Not one news station will mention it. Not one news station will mention it. But why should they? Not one individual in the country cares. Do you care? Do you want peace and prosperity and happiness for everyone? No, you don't. Why don't you? Because underlying all that you think you are filled with evilness. Now, I'm telling you the absolute truth. I'm telling you the absolute truth. I tell you this because you might not know it, but I ran against presidency against Bill Clinton. And what did I champion? Peace and prosperity and happiness for everybody. You never heard of me. I thought that the nation would be so happy that this world could change, America could change, people who are suffering in this country could end it, people who don't have the wherewithal to smile could have it, people who don't have health care, who don't have the adequate education could have it. I thought they would all be happy. They'd be thrilled-packed. You never heard of me. I ran against Bill Clinton again. I ran against George Bush as a write-in because the Republicans or Democrats would not have me. I ran against Barack Obama because Republicans and the Democrats did not want what I advocated. And here I am today in the middle of this cesspool, still telling you that it is God. If you want peace and prosperity and happiness in your life, you're never going to get it until you turn to God. And you don't have to get on your knees. Not that God I tell you about. You have to turn your heart around and change it from what you've been taught all of these years you've been living in this life and in this hellhole. You're going to have to change and treat people the same way you want to be treated. I tell you that the God of life made this earth. And like a womb, he filled it with all that you, human beings, would ever need to survive. And all of you need the same thing to survive. That's food and clothing, shelter. And to prosper and grow, you need education. And to stay living in this life, you need health care. And for all of these things to be met, every last one of you need a career of your own choosing that gives you happiness. But you can't hear this. You'll hear Trump telling you 1,000 things today, and you would make programs that would take issue with certain things just so you can be prosperous, get you some of those dollars, some of that God. But what I'm telling you right now, check back on YouTube and see how many people have clicked on it. 3 or 4. If you want to check out Facebook, see if anybody has viewed it. And you will find maybe a handful, which indicates either the message has not been spread in a way that people could get it, or they were not interested. For sure, the nation and its representatives care less about this than a dog. But it is the only way. You hear me? It's not going to come from a white man. It's not going to come from a black man. It's going to come from God through you, not through me, not through Trump, not through any human being, but God by the Spirit living in you. Doggone it, can't you get this? All of you smart people out there, all you educated people, can't you get this? Don't you see that everything you've ever done has failed? You give this guy who's the CEO for the Facebook, look how much money they gave him for getting up a system that can take all of your information and they can get this information about you. How much money did they give him? He was one of the richest men in the country. They gave him an all lot of God. But what did it get for you? Look at the people who work in these stores who are stocking shelves. Look at the people who are working in the hotels, who are carpeting, who are vacuuming the floors and cleaning the rooms so that those of you who travel can have a decent place to stay. What do they get out of this? Minimum wage? They got dreams. They got aspirations. They got children. They got ones that they love. They want to share in this paradise too. So where is the God that you serve? Where is the God that gives this preacher money to travel all over the country and try to get more money for himself? This is the God you've bent your knees to. I say to you today, get your butt off your knees. Turn your heart around and listen to the Spirit that you've never listened to before. You know every time you do something wrong, you know it's wrong. You know every lie you tell is a lie, and you know it's no good. Even though it might get you over the hump for the moment, you know it's no good. Lying, cheating, and stealing and killing, these are all results of not knowing God. And yes, many of you prosper from it, but many of you don't. Many of you are in jails and prisons because of this. And why does it exist? Because you don't know God, because your system does not know God. And if you change your heart and start acting toward one another, you will find that this system is from the pit of hell. And you will demand that it change because you will not give allegiance to it. You will not pledge allegiance to it. Now, I'm sick today because you have made me sick. You act like you don't have any sense. You act like you have no sense at all. When peace is at your hands, knocking. Prosperity is at your hands, knocking. Happiness is at your hands, knocking. And you keep looking for someone else to give it to you. No, my friends. Why do you think you're on earth? You're on earth to learn. that your choice, absent the will of God, is your hell. I'm telling you this. I don't care what preacher you are. I don't care how well you look when you get up in that pulpit. I don't care how well you're able to articulate what you're saying. If you're not telling people that God is the answer in such a way that they can see God being experienced in their lives today, you don't know a thing about the Almighty God. How you think I feel being able to tell you this? On the one hand, I'm thrilled pink that I can tell you this. On the other hand, I'm as sad as I can be. Because I've gone through this for 40 years, and for 40 years you've closed your eyes, you've closed your ears, and your hands have been shut, and you've walked in darkness. But this is God's justice to you because of your choice. And if you think that you're ever going to have that peace, that prosperity, that happiness that I speak of, you're going to have to change your way. And you're going to have to demand that everyone else change their way to the way of peace and prosperity and happiness. And that, my friend, is the only way you're going to get it. And for those of you who are individuals, I want you to know that you can change your heart. You can change all that I've said here today. But your peace and your prosperity and your happiness will not be experienced here in hell. And if you're truly real to God and to yourself, they're going to kill you. And why do they kill you? Because they don't want you here. And if they don't want you here, God wants you where God is. And that's paradise. And you can believe this if you want it. Or you can deny it. The choice is yours. Once again, a house divided cannot stand. Likewise, a nation divided won't stand either. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.